Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, it's probably one of the best kept secrets.
Are you going to keep it a secret?
All my 30-something years in franchising. I used to disappear on a Friday. Nobody could ever get hold of me on a Friday.
How have you were in a relationship with this person?
Yeah.
Oh, Penny, you are like a box of tricks. I absolutely love you. Wow. Okay, I'm here again. You would not believe the things I go through to get ready for these podcasts because I don't take it lightly. And this one's is definitely not being taken lightly. I've not really got a chance to know this lady yet, but every time I've seen there's a little bit of magic around her, and I was intrigued and invited on the podcast from that. Would you please do me a favour and just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do?
I'm Penny Hopkinson from Stratford-on-Avon, and I reimagine the dull, text-heavy operations manual as a knowledge-sharing environment in which everyone can participate, learn and grow.
Amazing. It's that piece of work of turning something dull and boring and monotonous into something magical must be extremely difficult. I don't even know how to begin to even consider doing something like that. Have you got an idea of how could you describe me? If you were teaching me how to do it, what would you say? What would you do?
I would say that you need to look at your manual in 3 distinct parts, 3 steps. The first is to develop a very thorough, detailed structure and contents, because without that backbone, without that skeleton, you don't have anything to put on that body. So you then go to the content developing stage, and finally drafting and publication. But today it's not that simple. It wouldn't be. I mean, we started with those, do you remember those heavy tomes that just gathered dust on a shelf?
Yeah.
Well, in the days of writing the Costa Coffee manual, we went from those dull text-heavy tomes to putting it on CD-ROM. I think we were the first to do that, which was the first stage for a digital edition. There was no cloud, there were no knowledge sharing.
Just burning it on a CD.
Yeah, that's all it was. And you could put several volumes on one CD. What we did was we had a volume for each. For example, we'd have health, safety and hygiene on one. We'd have all the supplier information. Then we would probably have HR on one. But we were creating thousands and thousands of words for the brand partners to develop their territories.
Amazing. What I've got so many questions around this piece of work, and I know you've been doing an awful long time. I mean, a lovely long time. How did you end up doing that? How did you end up doing that? I tried to look for your LinkedIn profile, and I was like, how do I don't even. It's not fair almost to try and capture your career history in the short period of time of a podcast, is it really? But I would. Can you give me like a brief outline of how you started your career? Well,
I started off as a shorthand typist.
Yeah.
And a very bad one at that. I joined a very, very well-known music publishing company.
Right.
And after 3 months, I was called into Mr. Geoffrey Russell Smith's office and politely told where to go. But I did know that that was not going to be my career. Typing, yes. You know, I can type like a demon.
Yeah.
Shorthand, no. Accuracy for that, no. Didn't have the heart in it anyway. All I wanted to be was a journalist.
Yeah.
And music publishing, well, if it was publishing, that was a step towards getting into publishing.
Yeah.
So I tried, and eventually I got my big break. And it was a time in the late 60s where the unions, the National Union of Journalists, was very strong. And you couldn't join a union house if you weren't a member. And Dr. Roy Owen was the editor of Health Service, Hygiene and Equipment and Hospital Building and Engineering. And he interviewed me and he said, now, and this is how it always went, Miss Hopkinson, looking at your career to date, don't you think that this shows quite a lot of irresponsibility? You had 5 jobs in X years. And I said, well, I just wanted to get to the job I wanted and would love. And he hired me.
I bet that's a great response, isn't it? That's a great response, that. I love that. It's something we should put that on LinkedIn. That's a great response, that. There'll be so many people who need that response, isn't there?
So
do you think that was the opening gambit of how you got your break off him? Is that, do you think
yeah,
that?
it was definitely. Because Roy was taking a real flyer, getting a young lady, I was 21, trying to get into journalism, not a member of the union, and he had to do some serious negotiation to get me in. So I started as an editorial assistant and very rapidly went to assistant editor and got to write features. And that's what I really, really loved.
Talk to me about what does it entail, that?
What it means is that I will go into a company and find out all about it, how they built the company and what their products do and how those products are implemented in everyday life. So, for example, hospital building and engineering, I would probably go to a hospital somewhere, interview some of the people at the top, find out how the facility had been designed, look round, and really do a one-on-one interview.
And is it your job to kind of tell the story of what they're doing there and then?
Yeah. It tells the story of what the company does and how they do it, without talking about the personality behind it, which is something that I will come to later. Mm-hmm. But from hospital building and engineering, I went into print room, and printing equipment and materials in the same publishing house, Northwood. And then I was headhunted to go to Occupational Safety and Health, which was the ROSPA, the Royal Society of Prevention of Accidents.
I'm not being funny with you. Some of them titles I can't even remember already. Like, how have you turned them subjects into something interesting?
Well, this was all about leaping over wet concrete and interviewing people who were supposed to be wearing safety shoes and had got open sandals, ready to drop a load of bricks on their feet. It was fantastic. I really loved this. Mm-hmm. And of course there were, you go through all the press releases and all the accidents, and one of the accidents that really sticks out in my mind, and I'm sure it will with many others, that somebody fell into a vat of chocolate.
No way. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it?
Well, what a way to go.
Yeah. Did they die?
Yes.
Oh my God, it's a good way to go, isn't it?
It was. Can you imagine drowning in chocolate?
I'll do it this afternoon. Let's go. Can't believe that, can you?
Oh dear. So, I mean, obviously there was some really, it's really tragic. I should really laugh. But, the idea of going the way that practically anybody who's a chocolate lover would want to go. And I also got involved in social services reporting. And I worked for a magazine when I had a spell as a freelance, and I worked for Nursery World as a freelance. And I got sent off to interview Hayley Mills when she had her first baby.
Who's Hayley Mills?
Oh, Hayley Mills, the famous actress, The Railway Children.
Right. And
her father, Sir John Mills, who's a very famous actor.
Right.
So Hayley Mills was married to a film producer, and I went to this big house in Knightsbridge to interview her, and I took a teddy bear with me because I thought it would break the ice. And she was absolutely lovely. And so I got my first world exclusive.
Amazing. Penny, can I ask, it might be a deep question this, but I guess you have to be quite a creative person to come up with these things and dive into this. Can you remember prepping yourself for these things, or afterwards when you've done them? How did you manage it? Was it confidence already there, or did you have to go through a process? Like me and my podcast today, I've had to train this morning, have my breakfast, I've been quite cautious about what I'm wearing and stuff like that. Did you remember any of that sort of stuff?
I think I had to psych myself up for all these interviews, particularly the ones like Hayley Mills, because she was so high profile.
Yeah, you want to do a good job, don't you?
You do. You don't want to appear disrespectful or foolish in front of her.
Yeah.
You just want to make her feel comfortable, as if you're having a conversation like this.
Yeah. It's just trying to, because you want to be. You're trying to create a casual environment, to get the best out of that person, but you have to take it seriously. And I was trying to prod and poke and just see if there's anything you went through that you tried.
Oh, definitely. I was an introvert.
Were you?
Yes, very introverted little girl. Speak when you're spoken to. All that kind of thing. Is
that because of your mum and dad upbringing, or just?
Yeah, it was. It was. I had a private school upbringing, which I loathed.
Yeah.
Loathed every single moment of it.
Did you like the education, or just didn't like school?
I just didn't like. I didn't like the whole philosophy of being separated from my parents and my friends.
Yeah, I bet.
And I didn't think the school was that fantastic. I wasn't particularly good at school in terms of getting good results.
Really?
No.
I thought you'd be a right academic or something.
No, absolutely the opposite.
Really?
I wasn't sporty.
I love that. I love you even more now. I love the rebels.
I wasn't sporty. I wasn't academic. I wasn't sort of in the mainstream. What happened was that when I went into school, I went away boarding school first for a taster, 3 miles away from home during the week at 9, and then at 10 I went off to boarding school at Malvern. And they put me in the second form, and I made all my friends. The third term, they said, well, you haven't done algebra and geometry, and you haven't done Latin, so we're going to put you down into the first form. So everybody made their friends. I really hated Latin. I certainly hated anything to do with mathematics, because I was lousy, really, really bad. But there was a reason, because I had a deformity of my eyesight, which meant 5s looked like 3s, looked like 6s, looked like 9s. And when I looked at the blackboard, I'd look up and I'd see one figure, so I would add the figures or subtract them or do whatever I was supposed to do, and then look again, and it was different.
How did you cope with that?
I didn't really know it. I didn't really know that there was a problem. That was much, 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 much later.
No way. Is it a form of dyslexia, or is it?
I think there is a form of numeric.
No, really.
There is a special word for being numerically dyslexic.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and now, even now, I have to check my figures over and over again, just to make sure that they're correct.
I didn't see that coming. I didn't see this coming. I didn't love school either. I was given a bit of a hard time at school. I feel like in hindsight I was bullied, but I wasn't like in a bad, violent way. I was just quiet. And I went to private school for my first year, and I didn't like it. And obviously you've got to keep your grades high, haven't you, for private school? So they get best grades, so they get more people attending. And I was just dyslexic and didn't really care too much. And my brother was in the school as well, and he was really struggling. And they actually asked my brother to leave, which my mum said she wished she'd fought harder for it now. But yeah, they asked him to leave. And my brother ended up in a special school in Chorley, actually. But when my mum and dad's business, I think they burnt down, we moved to a different school, and the same bunch of lads knew each other at the same school. So I carried on the bullying, carried on, and I just hated it because of that. But again, I have dyslexia. I don't blame the dyslexia. I blame the teachers, to be honest with you. I think they're much better nowadays, though. I think education is up to its game. But yeah, it's interesting so you'll have been very much like me. I didn't have a big friendship circle when I left school either.
No, I didn't.
Did you not? No.
And that was mainly because I was put down a test.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Everybody had made their friends.
So you lost all them friendship circle.
Yeah. Although I did pick up with a major friendship some years later, quite by accident. But I was bullied. But bullying, it was a very strange form because at girls' schools, you're always allowed to take a cuddly animal with you, a little stuffed animal toy.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, for some reason, I loved monkeys. And I always used to have a little monkey toy, and one that my mother had, she won some money in the Grand National, and 3 friends went to Harrods, went to the toy shop, which was the toy department right up the top.
Yeah.
And she came back with a little monkey that was almost as big as I was. And that always went to school with me.
Amazing.
But they used to dangle it outside on the fire escape.
Kids can be so cruel, can't they?
They can, but I mean, who today would actually take that seriously?
Yeah.
Because it's more of a mental bullying, in not what we would really call a proper bullying situation. I mean, I've seen some really bad situations of bullying.
At boarding school?
No, this was in a prison situation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Come on, talk later. You've not been in prison, have you? You've been in prison?
Perhaps some people might have liked to keep me there.
Yeah.
No, I was a prison visitor for 5 years.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I got very involved, and eventually...
Who were you visiting?
Well, I was visiting somebody who was not going to get any visits from anybody else. They were on their own, literally abandoned.
And how did you get into? Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, it was. It's probably one of the best kept secrets.
Are you going to keep it a secret?
All my 30-something years in franchising, where I used to disappear on a Friday. Nobody could ever get hold of me on a Friday.
And that's where you went?
So, yes. Yeah.
Can we talk about it at all?
Yeah, we can.
I'm so intrigued now. How have you spoke to this person? How did that start?
Well, what it was a relationship. And something went very violently wrong.
You were in a relationship with this person?
Yeah.
Oh, Penny, you are like a box of tricks. I absolutely love you. Wow. You were in a relationship with someone?
I was in a relationship.
So how old were you?
I was, 19... I was about... I was 40... I think I was about 46.
No way.
45, 46.
So you're going out with someone?
Yeah, so I was going out. He was professional. He was an accountant.
Wow.
And he was an FLCS.
Wow.
And very highly respected. And he got into a situation that he could not control.
Wow, got it.
And they threw the book at him. And I'm not surprised, because on the surface, and I attended every single day at the Old Bailey.
Wow. I bet that was tough, that.
It was probably the toughest thing I have ever done.
Heartbreaking.
It was. To see somebody who you know the story because you lived the story, and how it was turned. I'm not saying that the action wasn't wrong. It was.
Yeah.
It was totally wrong. But they didn't see all the things that led up to it.
Yeah, it's always it's got two sides to every story.
It was he was convicted of grievous bodily harm with intent and aggravated burglary, and then false imprisonment, and having a deactivated gun lay on file.
Wow.
And he was sentenced to 10 years concurrent and 3 years concurrent, which means that it's taken as all of one time.
Wow.
So every single week I went up to, he started off in Brixton. No, sorry, Wormwood Scrubs on remand. I got him bail. Then he went to Brixton, which is dispersal. Then he went to a new prison called Highdown in Sutton. And I somehow got quite involved with the prison governor, who realised that there was something that had a different dimension to most of the people in there. And we'd talk and so on and so forth. And he got me into we decided that we were going to try to develop a programme for people who were on long prison sentences, but to try to keep the relationship going. So it was called Outside In.
You need to tell me more about this. This is amazing.
And I was invited to talk to members of the Board of Prison Visitors, magistrates, other prison governors, and I think there were some magistrates, about trying to keep the family together. So I gave a speech, and the prize at the end of it was to spend a night locked in a prison cell to experience what it was like.
Wow. Did you do it?
Yeah.
No way.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
For love.
Well, no, it actually wasn't for love. It was because he was in another part of the prison.
Oh, right.
It was to understand what it is like to lose your freedom, even if for me it was only 8 hours.
Yeah.
10 years, well, it's 5 years with good behaviour.
Yeah.
Otherwise it would have been 7 years behind bars.
Is he out now?
Yeah, long out.
He's still a friend?
He died 2 years ago.
Oh.
Well, there was some more to come. It sort of turned round and bit me.
Oh, did it?
But this all led to me going to the annual conference of the Board of Prison Visitors up at York University to give a talk to the top man in the prison service.
Amazing.
I think it was Derek Lewis at the time.
Amazing.
And
did that initially, you started that and that came into place and that was something that went on for years?
Well, that was 5 years. But unfortunately, we had a change of Home Secretary who was not quite so
flexible,
intent on trying to keep families together. I mean, I have a really long-held passion, and that's we must do more for people in prison to keep relationships going. I mean, you can imagine if you're apart for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the changes that occur to the partner who is outside.
Yeah, massive.
The changes to the children. I used to help a family. She was absolutely wonderful. They had 4 children, 3 girls and the boy. And the boy, unfortunately, was taking the place of his father and bullying the girls, bullying the mother. And I was desperate to try and change it. Really desperate. I got as far as getting some Home Office blessing to do the programme, and then we had the change of Home Secretary. So it never got there. Oh. And every time I see the statistics on recidivism, I think if only one person is prevented from having to go through that hell. And prison isn't wonderful.
No.
Even in the C category, it is hell. The bullying that goes on.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's been in prison, and he says he might get glamorised on social media by prisoners and stuff, but it's hell.
It is hell.
Yeah.
It's hell. You can't sleep.
Yeah.
You have to watch your back all the time.
Yeah, it's just the freedom piece.
You people don't understand what lack of freedom is until it's taken away.
Yeah.
Until the key turns in the lock, and you are all alone with only your thoughts, wondering what's going to happen the next day. And even the person who's in prison, very mild-mannered, could take care of himself. The prison officers didn't like the fact that he was diligent, and the other inmates were the same, and they ganged up. And I actually got the brunt of it because I was squirted with CS gas or was it pepper spray on my way back once.
No way.
So it has a roll-on effect and a cumulative effect, and I would just love to be back doing something positive.
Yeah, I bet you would. You'd be good at it as well. It's amazing that I can't believe you've done that. We need to come back to that story, but I've got to try and get some of your career history down, yeah. What a story, Fanny. Must have been heartbreaking that, trying to get through that.
Well, I remember when the sentence was passed, because there was an underground strike on that morning, and I had to try and get a taxi across London to the Old Bailey and run up. I think it was court number 12, which is right at the top, and had to run up those steps in time for 10 o'clock. And my heart was absolutely in my mouth. And there was just one signal that was made, which was... And I knew that it was going to be a difficult one.
I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know how you cope with that sort of thing. I've never been in that position before. I know what it's like to lose someone. I guess there's a grieving period of some sort, isn't there?
Yes, I think I'm very lucky because I'm the kind of person who will try to turn something serious into something positive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I concentrated on my business. I concentrated on handling all his financial affairs, which were going completely pear-shaped, and he was almost made bankrupt. He almost lost everything. And one call to the bank, and the bank manager was known to be very difficult. And I said, I just want 24 hours to get this piece in place. And we did it.
Well done.
Fortunately, we did it. But I think I was working on Manual Writers International for about 8 hours, 9 hours a day. And then I would handle all the legal cases. There were about 4 legal cases that he was against. So my understanding of the law came to the fore a bit.
I bet he did. I bet he wrote some amazing stuff as well for him.
Well, I think my huge sense of injustice on when relationships break down and when you just can't see a way out because you don't have the means to do it, you've got to rely on somebody on the outside to do it, came to the fore. But it's a chapter that I would say I would rather not have had, but I learnt a lot. I always used to think of life in shades of black and white. By the time you've been through 5 years of this, you understand there are so many grey areas. Yeah,
it's so true, that.
And I hope it made me a better, more understanding person.
I feel like it probably did. I think it definitely, well, from talking to you now, it definitely did. I spoke to Kay about this before in the past. Life isn't black and white, and no matter how much you try, some stuff can be black and white, but there is just grey area. There's nothing you can do about it. It just is that way, and you have to just work you through it. And sometimes it takes you 10 minutes, sometimes it takes you 10 days, sometimes it takes you 24 hours, sometimes it takes a lot of sleep, a lot of tears, sometimes you need to be distracted for a little while. You go and do things like the gym or climb a mountain or go for a walk, but things sometimes are just grey and they can't be black and white. Can I ask you, is there anything you've ever done in your life? Do you have, so the gym's a big part of my life, exercise and running. Well, is there anything you kind of lean towards when you're in sort of states of stress?
Oh, I love my photography.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely love it. Love walking. We have a little Norfolk Terrier, very naughty Norfolk Terrier, and we love going out there. But Stephen often looks back and he can't find me, so I've gone off trying to find some squirrel or, I just absolutely love travelling and taking photographs while I'm abroad. Yeah. It all started when I was in Oman on business. I was a socio-economics correspondent.
What's a what?
Well, I think you're too young to know about 1973 and the oil crisis.
No, yeah.
You weren't born.
No. No.
Well, the oil crisis was really interesting because we were basically held to ransom. And so we went on a 3-day working week. I can't remember exactly how it went, but we didn't have any light. All the electricity was turned off 3 days a week. No lights. I lived in, I know it sounds grand, it was an unfurnished flat, very cheap in Knightsbridge. And I was on the 6th floor. No lifts, candles to light your way, that was all. And I think I'm right in saying that cars with odd number plates were allowed to fill up with fuel every other day. It was an incredible time.
I go mad when the Wi-Fi isn't working.
Yeah, well, yes. if I can't get to whatever I need to read or what, and the Wi-Fi is down, it's the end of the world, really, as we know it.
Wow.
But in those days, the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia were making their petrodollars. And in 1970, I just finished as international editor, launch editor of a magazine for European magazine for planners of international advertising. And somebody who I worked with had just got the contract for Gulf Air's In-Flight magazine. And he said, Penny, would you like to be editor of that? Kuwait Airways we're doing too, and Iran Air. Oh, yes, said I, that would be great. That's wonderful. Well, you're going to come out to Bahrain next week. Bahrain, where's Bahrain? Not sure about this. Very culturally different. Well, yeah, it sounds good. Off I went, and that was a 10-year career.
Wow.
So I started off with Gulf Air. It wasn't a particularly difficult publication because it was mainly travel in those days. Iran Air went by the wayside very quickly when the Shah was deposed. And then I started to get invited, because I was freelance, I was invited by hotel groups like Holiday Inn to go and do a fam trip, familiarisation. So they had a new hotel in Bahrain, they had one in Abu Dhabi, and they were going to build one in Khor Khan. So they flew us over to Bahrain, but unfortunately my suitcase went missing. So all the things that I was going to wear, I had to borrow. And we had 30 dinars immediate needs. Now 30 dinars is about, I guess it was about £20. What can you buy?
For 20 quid.
Yeah, not an awful lot even in those days. So this is going back to 1970, it's about 1976. So anyway, I bought myself a caftan because that's easy. Somebody lent me a T-shirt, managed to get a toothbrush, and this is where I learnt to travel very light. So we did everything we needed to do, and when we got to Khor Khan, we did a meet the ruler, and I was told, or the women on the trip were told, you don't shake hands. So we all line up, and the men on the trip shaking hands, women hands down by their sides. And then it came to me, and he stuck his hand out, amazingly. And it was the first time that he had ever been filmed shaking hands with a woman.
No way.
Which was amazing.
Why? Just because you've done such a good job with them?
I don't think so. I think in those days, if I may be sexist, I had long red hair.
Oh, right.
It's very grey now, obviously, and short, but long red hair, and I was a good deal slimmer.
So you're a bit of a you're saying you're pretty sexy back then, Pen?
I don't know about that. That would be a very, very subjective view. But that was great fun. And then the other thing, we had a big reception. And just before the reception started, some of the others had a Polaroid camera. And they went down and they were taking photographs of guests at a wedding. And they were absolutely mobbed. Nobody had seen a Polaroid before.
Right, yeah.
So they were mobbed. It was absolutely fantastic. And then, at the end of the fam trip, I made my first trip to Oman, where I was repatriated with my suitcase that had gone to Bombay. Those were the days when...
So how long were you out on Oman for then?
Well, I was only there for, I think I was there for a couple of weeks, because I met some people in the Omani embassy who had very kindly agreed to sponsor me, because in those days you had to have a no objection certificate. Women couldn't travel on their own.
Wow.
If you were under 30, you had to have somebody to vouch for your safe conduct.
There's a few girls I know who could do with getting vouchers their safe conduct,
yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
Mentioning no names, no pack drill. But this was my first trip to Oman, which began my absolute love affair of the area.
No way.
Yeah. I was a socioeconomics correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, International Herald Tribune,
Amazing.
Export Times, and an Arabic publication called Alamat Al-Jarrah, which was the equivalent of Business Week in the States, but it was monthly. And I interviewed ministers, merchants, and members of the ruling families.
Amazing, what an amazing job.
An absolutely amazing career.
I bet you did.
I saw things. I'm not the kind of person who sits in a hotel bar talking to expats.
You're out and about.
I'm out and about. I want to know, I want to immerse myself. And I've lived, ever since I first went out there, there's a word that is maktub, which means it is written. So my entire life is guided by this little phrase.
Maktub.
Maktub.
Have you got any tattoos?
No, but if I had one...
Yeah, that's what me and you should get a tattoo.
That would be it.
That's the one, that, innit? Yeah, I love that.
That's it.
What language is it in?
It's Arabic.
Is it Arabic, Maktub?
Yeah, it is written. So whatever happens in life, it is because it's already written.
I think you're probably right.
But I've had some simply wonderful times out there.
Can you think of anything off the top of your head right now or not?
Yeah. The really fantastic. I lived in Germany. I had a brief and not terribly satisfactory marriage, but that was because
Because of your red hair.
Well, no. It was because I agreed at the end of his tour of duty to drive back from Muscat to Stuttgart in a lovely Camaro that Jürgen didn't want to have dropped on the quayside. He absolutely loved that car. It was one of only two in Oman at the time.
Wow.
It's just such a fabulous car.
Yeah, it is.
Only two of them, and his was green, lovely racing green. And he said to me, we were in a whole group of friends at the Gulf Hotel, Muscat, or in Quorum. He said, do you fancy driving back with me? He said, it's going to be a jolly lonely trip on my own.
How many days? How long does it take that?
Oh, God, it was 3,000 miles.
Yeah.
For somebody who was car sick at under 50,
yeah.
And he said, I'll give you overnight to think. He said, I don't need to think about it, I'll do it.
Amazing.
So we went from Muscat, over Bahraini, into the United Arab Emirates, into Qatar. The road had just been opened between Abu Dhabi and Qatar. We drove across Qatar into Saudi Arabia. I got a rare Saudi visa from Oman because you don't travel with somebody who isn't your husband in a car across Saudi.
Jesus.
We did the Saudi Arabian pipeline route up into Kuwait. There was some amazing summit in I think it was the Hilton in Kuwait, and when we woke up, there were tanks in the garden with the turrets trained at all these little sort of chalets round the pool, which was a bit stunning. Then to show my absolute amazing knowledge of map reading, we had half an hour to go and renew the visa for Saudi. And so Jürgen handed me the map and said, right, you've got to get us there within 15 minutes. So, I don't know, we were going round and round, we've got 5 minutes. And he noticed that the sea was inland. I had the map upside down.
Oh dear.
Not very good.
So he left you then, did he?
He should have done. Anyway, we got our visa, went back into Saudi, and then we had lots of adventures on the way, and eventually made it back into Stuttgart.
Amazing.
But
what a journey.
As a result, we got together, we got married, and I lived in Stuttgart for nearly 2 years, but was out of it more than I was in it because I was still travelling around the Gulf.
Yeah.
And I was asked to become the advisor to the interesting sounding Deutsche Arabische Gesellschaft.
What?
Which, yes, exactly. Which is, I mean, it's taken me years to get my tongue around that one. It's the German Arab Friendship Society. And they go to any country before a trade agreement is signed. So they asked me to become their advisor. It's a bit odd because I'd never been to Iraq, but never mind. Again, another adventure. And I was the only female with members of the Bundestag and European Parliament to be invited by Saddam Hussein under the auspices of Naim Haddad, Speaker of the National Assembly. And we flew over there, and I was advising them on etiquette. And we stayed at the Mansour Amelia, which was actually the hotel that the press stayed in during the Gulf Wars.
Nowhere.
It was a new, shiny, wonderful, probably the equivalent of 6-star hotel. We were taken out everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and it was during the Iran-Iraq war. So there were curfews, and there were anti-aircraft guns all along the Tigris.
Just what an amazing. I don't even. What I say is that guy who took the chance on you in that that shorthand job, just catapulted you into some crazy, amazing life, innit?
Yeah, I think somewhere back in my heritage there must have been a streak that said, you're going to be a slightly foolhardy person and take chances.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I took so many chances. I went back to Baghdad. In fact, I stayed over. And in Iraq, in those days, in the 80s, 3 out of 4 people informed for the Revolutionary Command Council.
No way. So
you always had a ministry minder. And my ministry minder was wonderful. He took me to his home. He took me to see a concert. There was an Iraqi boy of about 10 playing Rachmaninoff. It was just incredible what that country could have become. It could have been amazing because they had all the practical application. They weren't all merchants. they actually had manufacturing facilities, they could have become the most powerful. If I did the personal interviews, it would be how a merchant got from selling bicycle spares 20 years ago to being a billionaire arms dealer, all that kind of thing. And I love those stories because there were so many. I mean, there were some where the merchants had never learnt to read or write, and all the contracts were signed with a thumbprint.
Mad.
Yeah, it's another world. It's another world.
Okay, let's try and get back to your career history. It's like I just knew there'd be some. When I saw you've been working over there, I was like, I don't even know where this conversation is going to go, but I didn't expect any of that. So we hated school, we didn't like school, we got a chance, went off on a career, we've been all over the world, we've been married. Did you have kids?
No.
No kids. Have you ever had kids?
No.
No kids. And then you came back, how long were you out the second time?
Oh, I would just keep going back over a 10-year period.
All right.
And then things got very political. It was the time of the PLO. Right. And the advertising wasn't being placed against the sort of lovely, shiny new projects and the 5-year development plan. I mean, Dubai had... everybody thought I was mad when I said that Dubai was going to be the best holiday destination. Yeah. How on earth can this dusty place... and look what's happened.
Yes,
it's just developed out of all recognition.
Right. Talk to me. How have we got from all the way and now writing manuals for franchising? Where has this world collided? Because I'll be honest with you, it feels like a different thing.
Well, I'd never expected not to be a journalist.
Yeah.
And things had changed in the Middle East. I'm not a political correspondent. I leave that to people who are experts. And so I found the advertising diminishing. My income was diminishing. Yeah. And it was a sort of crisis, what I call a crossroads. And my old editor from Electrical Contractor and Retailer, he phoned me up and he said, "Penny, do you fancy being quality correspondent for the Institute of Purchasing and Supply publications?" I said, "Why? Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go." And that was when the government produced a white paper on quality, because British manufacturing was absolutely diabolical. And the government thought, we better step in and do something about it. Because the reputation for British manufactured goods, particularly in the car industry, was zero. So I became a quality correspondent. That introduced BS 5750, which is now ISO 9001, or 9000. And I got fascinated by this, quality circles, total quality management.
I need to slow you down. So this guy said to you, "Can you create this white paper around?" And you'll go into businesses and start.
No. He wanted me to become the quality correspondent. So I went to all the press things. The introduction of the white paper by Lord Cofield. I was there when they were talking about a potential British standard for quality. Then I was there when the standard was introduced. I went to so many businesses looking at their quality management processes, writing up 2,000-word articles about quality, covering environmental quality, you name it, I did it. And I loved it. And I thought, well, what about those companies that don't need to or don't want to go through BS 5750? Do they want their quality processes documented? So I got a marketing grant where the government paid, I think it was 2/3 and I paid 1/3. And we did a big marketing exercise on whether I had a business. And it came back and said, yep, there is a huge business to be had. So I didn't know how to price myself. Nobody knew, because this was the first time anybody had sort of thought of something like this.
40 years ago.
Yeah. How do you charge for doing something like that? So I looked in The Guardian. The Guardian was the place for all the media ads on a Monday. And there was an ad that said, major city corporation requires procedures manual writer. I thought, okay, I'll go and explore, find out how much they're going to pay. So I went to the recruitment specialist, and we did all the usual things, and I was really relaxed because I had no intention of having a job.
Yeah.
And I went back again, called back again. And they said, well, the internal procedures manual position has gone. The Corporation of Lloyd's of London wants to create a special manual for you, which was the External Underwriting Agents Procedures Manual at Lloyd's.
Fucking hell.
It was 25,000 a year at, this was 1987.
Wow, a lot of money.
And I thought, this is fantastic. And you know, many people are asked, what's your definition of success? You know, how do you know that you've made it?
Yeah.
And I remember taking somebody to lunch, and for the first time in my life, not looking at the menu and how much the meal cost.
I bet.
And to me, that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did 3 days a week for them and worked 1 day at home. And on the 5th day, I did my editorships, because I had a whole lot. I was editor of one of the British Tourist Authority publications. And I also did loads of bits and pieces for other people.
Did you ever get, like, I guess, like a creative block or a writer's block about any of this sort of stuff? How did you kind of, like, or were you just a natural, like, fell in love with it and every time kind of thing? I just always wonder if you... I
just love writing. And I think it was all to do with my father, because my father always used to take me into his factory, even from a little girl.
What did your father do?
My father was an engineer,
right,
and a mechanical engineer. And he had a small factory with the stuff that we all absolutely hate today, polystyrene.
Yeah, horrendous.
It was a new packaging material. And he used to make packaging for precision instruments. And so he designed a lot of his own machines. And I remember the first time when he took me into the factory and all these machines hissing away, steam everywhere. And it was a bit frightening for a little girl. It was a bit like having 10 steam engines all round you. And he took me into a little room, and there was a hot wire cutter. And he said, this is a hot wire cutter. This is how you cut the blocks. Now you do it. And I remember this really sort of great satisfaction when the blocks were cleanly cut with a wire of 600 degrees Celsius. If my mother had known, she would have had a fit.
Yeah,
no, there were no safety guards or anything like that.
You're going to chop your arm off, maybe.
I mean, in Midlands industry, you did not have health and safety rules. And I just remember my father being so pleased and feeling pleased that I'd done something that he liked. And he always used to, right up until the day, literally till the day he died, he would always be sharing something, showing me how something worked. And he revelled in the idea that I was a trade and technical writer. So I wrote about this at a tutorial at college, and my tutor put, "Have you ever thought of writing as a career?" And that was the light bulb moment at 17.
What do you think makes a good writer?
I think it's being able to engage, understand, and put into very simple terms something that's complicated.
I'm definitely not going to be a writer. I can make something really simple very complicated. I'm the opposite. I'm trying to keep this on track. It's so hard. You've got so much to cover. You're incredible, aren't you? You had an amazing life, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been so lucky, you know. So I've just been led into areas.
I think it's your character, Penny, isn't it? You're quite I feel like this energy towards you, like you're a bit like a bag of wine gums, aren't you? Quite Moorish. You just want more and more, don't you? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and you feel comfortable around you. And it's just like, I want to scrap the podcast off and go and get a bottle of gin and some tonic, some crisps, and just sit here for the rest of the afternoon. I could do with it, to be honest with you.
Actually, that'd be a good idea. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. Next time we're meeting up, I'm not going to the next one. We're going for a drink.
But I think it's because I really love people.
Yeah.
You know, I really love. I mean, this obviously is kind of about me, but the next one should be about you, and finding out about you and having this this great empathy that you can build, a rapport that you can build with other people.
Yeah.
And it's lovely that at this time of life I'm on the receiving end of questions.
Yeah.
Normally I'm the interviewer.
Yeah.
And I think the two words that I would always describe myself as being is somebody who really loves to engage, who loves to communicate, but communicate something that somebody else has of great value to others, so that they can benefit in some way or other, or get some, this mountain of value that you always want.
Tell a story almost.
Yeah.
Tell a story.
Yeah. I think I see my life in terms of stories.
Yeah.
Because I've been so privileged in so many ways. I mean, franchising, it's a huge privilege to be in franchising.
40 years you've done that writing for that place, haven't you? For all different brands.
Yeah. I started in when I did the proof of concept.
Yeah, that was it. How did that bit work?
That was amazing.
Did you just get asked to do something for a brand or something?
Well, the first one, I went to a West London Export Group meeting, and there was somebody from Guinness Enterprises, from the Guinness Book of Records, and they said, we've just got something that we're turning into a franchise. I think they want an operations manual. I don't know, but I'll pass on your name. And I ended up by working with Stoy Hayward on Champneys. That was my first one. Champneys clubs, Champneys spas that were going global.
No way. Was that a franchise?
It became a franchise,
no
but
way.
Then subsequently Guinness Enterprise sold the business, I think, because I don't think that they could make it global in the way that they wanted to. And the Weeways bought it back eventually. They started it and they bought it back eventually. But then working with BDO Stoy Hayward, I learned all about franchising. I worked with a retail specialist because there was retail part of Champneys in the clubs. I had, to me, it was mind-blowing because I could marry franchising with total quality management.
Exactly, yeah. Can I just ask, how do you, when you speak to someone who owns a business, a bit like me, or people in the business, and they're caught up in the romance of running a business and all the magical things that go in it, and just getting on with the job, how do you capture that and put it into an operations man, or do you not, or do you, or I don't know?
I do. It is, to me, it's vital to have the personality of the business in a manual. But my manuals aren't manuals that are dull text, heavy manuals.
No.
I now bring them to life because, things change. Things change very, very dramatically. You know that 30% of the global workforce is going to be under 30 mid-next year.
Wow. Mad that, isn't it?
And 5 generations can be found under one workplace.
Mad
From
that.
baby boomers like me to Generation Z.
Mad that, isn't it?
Now, the difficulty is engaging with them because they won't engage with a manual as we know it or knew it.
No.
You're
video.
You're the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram generation.
Yeah.
And so Millennials and Generation Alpha, who are going to make up a really sizable part of the workforce, and franchising, as we know, have young people in the main, and now quite a lot of them are being run by people under 30.
Yeah, they are.
So we've got to engage them in a very different way. Otherwise, we're not going to get the replication of uniformity and conformity.
What's your thoughts on ChatGTP and AI? Have you had a go on that yet?
No, I love it.
Yeah.
As soon as I could get my sticky little hands on it, there I was away.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. And I've got this other side of my brain, which is very tech.
Right.
I can't resist a bit of tech.
Love that. Didn't know that either.
Anything that I can try and fiddle with and put together. It probably goes back to when I disemboweled my poor teddy bear and tried to find out where the growl came from. I managed to put it back in again, but then I went on to, one of those little musical boxes. I tried to take that apart, so I took it apart, but I couldn't get it back together again. Yeah. So that was the end of my practical career. But anything to do with tech, computers, I just love it.
Yeah, embrace it.
I really, really embrace it because I think it's something to do with trying to sort of get that logic, because it's all built on building blocks somehow. But AI is amazing. I have a chatbot.
Yeah.
I've got a library of tools and resources which, if you go into the book, right in the introduction, there's a QR code, and I think I was one of the first to put a QR code in a non-fiction business book.
Yeah.
So my publishers say. And so you use that, you capture it with your with your phone, and it takes you straight into my library of tools and resources, which is free of charge. It's only a small one, but it gives the essence of what I'm
talking about in the book.
There I've got Ask My Wizard, which goes with Manual Magic. And you can ask it anything on the operations manual, and it should, if it's properly trained, come back with the answer.
What's your thoughts on it telling like stories like what you used to do in your publication? Do you think do you like that side of it, or do you feel like it?
In which way?
Do you like, so like, cause I can type into like ChatGTP and I'll say, write me a web page around this, or write me a story about that, and I'll give it the answers, and it kind of gives it me back. But I don't know, sometimes it loses its soul a little bit. I don't know.
Yes, because it can't think in the same way. What it's doing is it's pulling in information.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to check it because it's not always right.
No.
What I do is I use it as a basis. It is fabulous for blank sheet of paper syndrome.
Get it off the ground.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely terrific. And I can't deny that I use it. It's great for marketing, but there are other more specific programs, AI programs, apps, that allow you to do more and target it better.
Yeah.
So for example, if when I wanted to do the blurb for the book, because I'm not really a marketing, I'm marketing, but I am not good enough to do the copywriting.
Yeah.
So I'll use a specific program, give it the essence, and it'll come back with exactly what I need with a bit of a tweak.
Yeah, I love that. That's what...
I think the thing about ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, and all the other language models is that used ethically, they are so good to make you more productive, more quickly and cheaper.
Yeah, I think so too.
Certainly at the moment, they will never replace our souls, but I think the people who don't use AI are going to be left behind, and the people who use AI to get specific jobs done are going to win, because they're going to be able to do things better and quicker.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a I'm definitely leaning into it. I went to the conference the other day. Stephen Bartlett was talking at the conference, and he was saying if at the absolute minimum you should be playing around with it.
Yeah.
So I said, I wrote in my book, we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday. I didn't get it done yesterday, but when I do the meeting with the team, I'm going to get everyone to download the ChatGPT app, and I've got some basic instructions. I'm going to get them all to have a little go at something, so that kind of, I know they've all had a go at it, because I think there's some people in the office who've never even looked at it, and I think there's some people who use it all the time.
The key to it is the prompts.
Yeah.
And if you, there are two keys. One is how you craft the prompt. And I find that easy because of being able to do the, it's like interviewing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But getting that really, really tight. The second is training ChatGPT to learn how you write, your voice.
Yeah.
And I've trained ChatGPT, whatever I write, it writes in my style.
Yeah, same.
Which is great, because you don't use your authentic voice.
Yeah, I loaded loads of my previous LinkedIn posts into it, copied and pasted them into it. I put the Tezlom Bible in there, all our market, loads of stuff over time. Now you can talk to it. Have you seen you can talk to it?
Yeah.
I literally was getting ready the day, I had a 45-minute conversation with ChatGPT about my life, and just talked to it, and he's asking me questions back and learnt loads about me. It's amazing, isn't it, really?
It's incredible. A colleague of mine, who's my project manager on the Costa Coffee main manuals, she did a search on me to see what it would come up with, and we were astounded.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny little exercise to do. It's a bit bit odd, but that's the extent to which you can use
really,
it. I must have about 10 10, 12, 13 apps, I can't stop buying them. They're only 20 quid here, 20 quid there, but they all do something different.
Yeah.
And I've just got the latest iPhone, so that now in iOS 18, you can record your own voice. You've got to do something like 150 phrases to train it to use your voice in certain apps.
Amazing. I thought great.
Which is going to be a boon for me, because I'm not the kind of person who really likes doing lots of video.
Got to get to know.
It's taken me ages to put my head above the parapet, which I had to do with the book. I was always the one, go to any lovely event in franchising, just chat. I'd never, ever sell, ever. I've only advertised once in, I don't know how many years, 30, it's now 35, 40, it's getting on for 40 years this
I'm not
year.
surprised though, let's face it, you'll be amazing at writing. I feel like you want to go and have a look at mine before we do it again next year. Amazing that, isn't it? What brands have you worked with? Can you name a few of them?
Costa, Lloyd's of London, Champneys, Pronto Print, Bang & Olufsen, Premier Inn. Costa is Whitbread as well, or was Whitbread. They sold to Coca-Cola about 3 or 4 years ago. Let me think. Quick Fit.
Amazing.
Wiltshire Farm Foods.
Done a lot on you.
And lots of startups.
Yeah, loads of startups, I bet.
Yeah. And the book was really written for startups.
Yeah, it is.
Because you know what happens, it costs a lot of money to franchise your business.
Yeah.
And then you do the franchise agreement, and what have you got left?
The ops manual.
Yeah, and the ops manual. It's something that people really don't like doing. They can't... you see the point of it, but it's trying to get all that information out of your head.
Yeah. Do you go and see the clients, Penny? When you go and see them, do you spend some time with them?
Yeah. I have to understand the business.
Yeah.
Which for me is very easy, because with the trade and tech background, it's something that I'm very used to, and I can grasp something very quickly. Well, usually they're very, very few that I find a bit obscure. So I should be able to. The more you get into the manual, the easier it becomes. But we've now got a new way to engage with the younger generations, which is bite-sized chunks of video on a knowledge-sharing platform, where the franchisees and their teams actually generate the processes, makes it 10 times quicker to do. Mm-hmm. They love doing it. They get incentives incentives are given for any improvement that's implemented. So in the book, I've got a fictional franchise called Patisserie Penelope. No prizes for guessing who that is. Yeah. But my mother was a fantastic cook. And we used to come back from school, and there were all these wonderful chocolate eclairs and things that I shouldn't really look at these days. But somehow patisserie has loomed large in my life. I have friends who've run them and so on. And so I built this fictional franchise, and in it there's Mary, who is working for one of the franchisees, and she notices that the kitchen hand is coming in early but forgetting to take the butter out of the fridge, ready for the chefs to make the Victoria sponge. And it's making the sponges heavy. There's a lot of wastage because you can't blend it into the flour easily. And the chef's getting a bit annoyed, and the customers don't like the Victoria sponges.
Well, it's got the room temperature of the butter, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So what she does is she experiments and she finds how many minutes all this butter needs to be in the microwave. So she maps out a 30-point process, goes to the manager and says, I've developed this, can I put it on the knowledge sharing platform? So she and Carl, the kitchen hand, film the process. Only hands, you don't need faces because it's only watching the process. And she goes from the point where the butter is out of the fridge, chops it up into little chunks, puts it in a bowl, into the microwave, times it, blah, 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 blah. And there the process is finished. So she then uploads it onto the platform, puts captions on, gets it sanctioned by her manager, goes to head office. Head office think this is wonderful, puts it across the network, turns it into a QR code, and the QR code is positioned where the kitchen hand would normally take the butter out of the fridge. So all they need to do is take the smartphone out, capture from the camera, goes straight into the process. It can be turned into any language, spoken or read, at the pace that you want it to go. So, for example, if you're a barista and you've only just learnt how to strip down the coffee machine at the end of the day and clean it, you take the smartphone, capture the QR code on the side of the machine. It'll take you through step by step. If your first language isn't English, you choose the one that you want. And that engages your teams so that they are part of continuous improvement. I mean, you know now today that you don't choose your employee chooses you because of your values and many other attributes that they want from a business. They don't just want a big salary. They want satisfaction. They want to be valued. They want to
feel part of something.
Yeah, part of something that they will grow with. And by incentivizing people on continuous improvement and perhaps giving them an Amazon voucher for £100 if the process is put up on the platform, and then on the conference, the team that has provided the best value to cut incidents, accidents, wastage, and led to employee retention, the franchise gets a prize at the conference. So everybody's involved because we don't want top-down all the time.
No.
It's peer-to-peer.
Yeah, I can see how that works.
Yeah. And it means that you're becoming much more involved and a central part of the success of a business. And I think that's what is really needed today.
I can see it, my brain's ticking away with our business, what we could do more of. I'm pretty on top of our videos, though, I think, at the minute. But yeah, I like the idea of that. Some good ones there.
Just little bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
So that you can go step by step. It doesn't mean to say that you lose everything else, but the platform is dynamic. You can, the one that I use is called Manual2, manual.to, and they've pioneered this. They're in Saudi Arabia at the moment. They've made the final 100 out of thousands of applicants for the, I think it's the Pioneer of the Year. And it wouldn't surprise me if they don't win it.
I don't know what else to ask you, Penny, but I wanted to ask you one more thing, just about family life, really. Are you married now?
Yes.
And how long ago did you meet your husband?
Oh, I met Stephen in 2005.
Oh, quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Is he in franchising or?
No, completely different. I don't think he understands franchising at all.
Who does? I don't think anyone does, do they?
Well, that's probably true. No, he's a fine art auctioneer and valuer.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's another amazing job, isn't
Yeah,
it?
You know when you go home and you sort of chat about what you've done during the day, there's no point in asking me what I've done in the day. But the first thing, who have you seen? What have you?
Yeah,
what have you seen?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
have you done? And I mean, he's just amazing. He has more than a photographic memory. He's worked for some of the big country auctioneers from Scotland down to Bristol. But he ran his own sale room when I met him. And I was always interested in going to auctions and, always, there's always this thing, I don't want to sort of twitch my nose in case I've bought the £5,000 something or other.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. I mean, his auctions were great fun. They were occasions, they were events, as well as everything else. And so I met him through a group of friends, somebody's birthday, and I had the residue. I mean, this is really corny. I had the last half dozen swords of my grandfather's sword collection.
No way.
Yeah, he had the most amazing. I think I'm right in saying that his was the largest private sword collection in Europe.
No way, amazing.
Yeah, it was staggering. He co-wrote a book on swords and bayonets and things. And I had these things up in my loft in London, and I don't really like that kind of weapon.
No, more of a gun person. You like guns?
I don't actually like any of them.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I'm taking the piss.
Even less an Omani khunjar, which is the curved dagger, which, sort of around the throat. Very nasty.
Do one of them downstairs for later.
But no, I really didn't want to have them around, so I phoned Mary, who was working with Stephen at the time, and I said, Mary, do you think Stephen would value my grandfather's swords? And she said, oh yeah, I'll put you in touch. Anyway, he came over. And it's the usual thing, I know a man who does. So we shared a bottle of wine, and that's kind of how it started. But we were both at, I think about a year later, we were both at a pivotal stage of our careers. And I'd had a very unfortunate situation with one of my clients who went a bit rogue. And I was a bit fed up. And Stephen thought that he'd quite like to know how the trade operated. So, the dealers, antique dealers. So we took a year off and we became antique dealers.
Oh, nice.
And it was a baptism of fire because I didn't know anything at all about anything. And so we went from Edinburgh down to, I think it was Newton Abbot, doing antique fairs, sometimes 3 a week.
Amazing.
Getting up at some unearthly hour and setting up stall. The dealers would be in all the boxes before we'd unpack them. And we had a whale of a time.
Nice.
And then after a year, we said exactly a year, we understand how they operated. Because I did a lot of things in Stephen's business. I helped with the marketing, I helped with the catalogues, I did some of the photography, I did some lotting up. And I also worked on the cabinets, which are the upper end of the items that are sold on the day of the auction. So I've been fully immersed in his business, and that is one of the next books. So I'm writing Stephen's story.
Love that. Because such an interesting life. I'm definitely going to have to do another podcast with you and have another chat with you. Just have a gin and tonic with you, I think.
I'm afraid it'd have to be a non-alcoholic one for me, because I don't drink any alcohol at all.
Never drink?
But I did. Well, I never used to drink while I was in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But I've never been a heavy drinker. But no. COVID, 2.5 years ago, when I ended up in hospital, completely changed a lot of things. Right. One is my taste for alcohol. It makes wine, wine, which I always loved, at least 1 or 2 glasses maximum, makes it taste horrible. I don't know what it is. It's altered my taste completely.
No way.
And unfortunately, it's had a bit of a bearing on my health, because I had 8 months of long COVID, where I couldn't write 2 words. I couldn't make sense of any paragraph. I'd look at it for hours thinking, well, is that right? Isn't it? And it was almost like a feeling I had an early kind of dementia.
No way.
And I was really panic stricken.
Yeah, I bet it's quite scary.
Really panic stricken over it. And by absolute chance, my publishers, when we were doing the book cover design, lovely Joe said to me, "Oh, could you hold on a moment? We're just launching somebody else's book. Oh, you might be interested. It's a franchise book." And we got into conversation, and by a chance remark, I said, "Well, my book should have come out in what was it? July 2022." But I had long COVID, and I'm just not functioning. And he said, "Well, I've had exactly the same." He said, "I found this stuff. It's based on curcumin, turmeric, and he said I took it for a few weeks, and it changed my life around." So I say, "Oh well,
try it." Huh?
Yeah, nothing ventured, you're not going to know. So I said, okay. And 2 little bottles were waiting for me when I came back from holiday in Cornwall, November 2022. And 2 weeks later, my brain was back to normal.
No way.
Physically not. I still get quite tired very easily. But the brain is what really matters, and it was fantastic.
Turmeric.
Yeah, it's a special preparation. It's using a German nanotechnology, where the molecules are somehow wrapped so that they stay in your system 24 hours. And you know, with most illness, it's down to inflammation. And turmeric, curcumin, deals with the inflammation.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah. But the key is that it needs to be in your body for 24 hours in a concentrated form, and we call them golden drops, because it's a little bottle about that big, and you put, well, to begin with, it's like having, I think Runa Sovendal said, when you have 10 drops, it's like having 10 espressos.
Yeah.
But it's just pure curcumin. And 10 drops in the morning. And sometimes you can split them and have some at night.
I have turmeric in the morning. I have quite a lot of vitamins myself, but I'll have to try curcumin.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very special process, and you can only get it through a company that's based in Mexico.
Oh my God.
The States.
I'll definitely have to get it now, though. I love stuff like that.
Well, I'll give you all the details.
Yeah, text me.
But it's absolutely amazing because it helps me sleep at night with only 4 drops. And then I can split it and have 6 drops in the morning. I have a break during the summer because I think, it's sometimes very good to let your body have a break from something and then see if you get a greater benefit at the end. A bit like you don't need vitamin D in the summer. Well, this summer you probably did. But then in the winter, you take your vitamin D and you feel better as a result.
Can I ask just quickly, I'm going to try and wrap this podcast up because it'll go on for hours with me and you. Is there any other daily habits or routines you have? Is there anything else that you do on a daily basis? Is there anything you've ever kept going?
I suppose really it's taking dog for a walk.
Getting outside.
And one of the things that is so wonderful about that is if I'm doing a particular editing job and I get stuck and I really can't work out how something should be written, I'll say, come on, Georgie, we're off for a walk. And by the time I come back, it's all worked out. It falls into place.
Yeah, it's something I call movement is medicine. I think it really is. Yeah.
I to be really truthful, since COVID, I found it quite difficult because I get very breathless.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely ridiculous because I used to be very fit. But back in April when I was supposed to come and do the podcast, all of a sudden this, it was a combination of a chest infection, but that left me open to an unknown allergen, which got into my airways and it reacted like an asthma.
No way.
And the first time I ended up in hospital for 5 days. Second time, I was just lucky enough to miss going in because the steroids worked. So I'm not quite as fit. We do go for long walks, but they're more laboured than, if I'm going up a hill, I'm puffing and panting like a.
Yeah, Kay's like that. She's a bit on.
Well, that's only when she gets into an ice bath.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up there. It's very difficult to get the whole of your amazing life into this podcast. I have to admit, I feel like I've done a big job there, and I want to get some more maybe down the future with you. But just thanks for coming on and sharing.
It's been fantastic. I mean, you've managed to get out of me things that have been long buried.
It's a difficult job of this podcast sometimes because I didn't realise some of the most incredible people. But I'm definitely going to get you to have a look at our ops manual when we come around to doing it.
I think the thing about doing podcasts is if you have a good interviewer and you're relaxed, it doesn't matter what you're asked. Because what the whole point is not just about the business, it's the life.
Yeah, it's about life.
And you never know with somebody somewhere who listens to something and gets something that might help them.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
always I have been in some states over the last few years, and just hearing something or a text message or watching something or music just gets you through half a day or a day or that week. I think it's so important. So.
And I think we talk a lot about mental health these days, which never used to be talked about.
No.
And I, for a brief spell, was I was a non-exec director on the board of the Maudsley and Bethlehem Special Hospitals.
Right.
And I did that because You can see a broken leg or a broken arm. You can't see a broken mind.
No, you can't.
And I wanted to understand and not be afraid. And we had the power to keep people on section and take people off section with the medical professionals.
Yeah.
And there is, I think what I've taken from that is, in this life, you're only given one opportunity to help somebody else.
Yeah.
And you should grab it. Because it's not about you, it's about the good that you can do.
So true. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to wrap it up and finish there.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.